When you begin to understand that no one is coming to save you, something inside you shifts. It's not anger, not disappointment, but a quiet realization that your life has always been in your hands. From the very first moment you opened your eyes to the world, every decision, every habit, every belief has created the person standing here today. And the truth is, most people spend their whole lives waiting for encouragement, waiting for approval, waiting for someone to tell them the path they should take. But life doesn't wait. Time doesn't pause. And your potential doesn't activate simply because someone else believes in you. It awakens the moment you take responsibility for yourself. Self-responsibility is not about blame. It's about power. It's about the moment you stop pointing outward and start looking inward. Because the person who will shape your future is the same person who brushes your teeth in the morning, who lies awake at night thinking about dreams that feel too big, who hides fears behind a strong face, who pretends to be okay when they're not. That person is you, and the moment you realize this with full honesty, something very important begins: the journey of building inner strength. Inner strength is not loud. It does not need an audience. Real strength is quiet discipline, quiet consistency, quiet courage. It grows like a seed in the dark, unseen, uncelebrated, but unstoppable. And it begins when you tell yourself, I am responsible for my life, not partially, not sometimes, completely. Most people fear this sentence because it removes excuses. When you were a child, you relied on others to guide you. But at some point, you crossed an invisible line where your life became yours. Many miss that moment. They continue to search for guidance, validation, and direction from people who barely understand themselves. They keep waiting for someone to tell them it's okay to chase their dreams. They wait for perfect timing, perfect conditions, perfect support. But none of these things are guaranteed, and none of these things are necessary. The truth is, the moment you take responsibility is the moment you stop seeking external permission. External permission is dangerous. It places your life in the hands of others. It makes your growth dependent on how people feel, what they think, what they approve of. And if their fear influences you, your potential becomes smaller than their imagination. When you focus on yourself, you reclaim that power. You stop asking, will they support me? And start asking, will I support myself? Inner strength is built from the choices you make when no one is watching. It's built when you wake up early despite being tired. When you say no to distractions. When you choose discipline over comfort. When you decide to do the work even on days when motivation is gone. People often admire the results, but not the roots. They see the confidence, the calmness, the presence, but they don't see the years of internal battles that created them. They don't see the nights of doubt, the days of fatigue, the quiet moments where you pushed yourself even though you were tempted to quit. But you know, and that is why self-responsibility creates inner strength, because you become the witness of your own evolution. With self-responsibility, you stop blaming life for not giving you enough. You stop complaining about circumstances. Instead, you begin to ask different questions, not, why is this happening to me? But, what can I learn from this? Not, when will things get easier? But, how can I become stronger? Not, who should help me? But, what can I do right now with what I have? These questions create transformation, because when you take responsibility, you begin to see yourself as capable, adaptable, resourceful. You stop walking through life believing you are powerless. And when you stop believing you are powerless, you stop living like you are powerless. That shift changes everything. Self-responsibility demands honesty, not the kind you give to others, but the kind you give to yourself. It's easy to lie to others. It's easy to pretend, but deep down, you always know when you are not living in alignment with your potential. You know when you're avoiding the work. You know when fear is directing your choices. You know when you're not giving your best. But when you take responsibility, you stop running from that truth. You face yourself. You ask the difficult questions. Why am I stuck? What am I afraid of? What am I avoiding? What would my life look like if I committed fully? This level of honesty may be uncomfortable, but it's also liberating. Because once you see the truth, you can change it. You can shape it, you can reshape yourself from the inside out. And that is something no one else can do for you. People often believe that life becomes easier when circumstances change. But the truth is, life becomes easier when you change. When you strengthen your mindset, when you discipline your habits, when you stop allowing emotions to control your actions, when you stop depending on external motivation and learn to create your own, when you stop waiting for the world to show you opportunities and start creating them yourself. This is the nature of inner strength. It does not grow by waiting, but by doing. Self-responsibility also teaches you emotional control. Many people react quickly, impulsively, emotionally. But the moment you recognize that you are responsible for your actions, you begin to pause. You begin to breathe. You begin to choose your responses instead of being controlled by them. Emotional control does not mean suppressing feelings. It means observing them without being ruled by them. It means creating distance between the emotion and the action. It means understanding that your emotions are not your identity. They are temporary movements within you, not permanent definitions of you. When you can see this clearly, inner strength follows. Focusing on yourself does not mean becoming selfish. It means becoming centered. When you are centered, you make better decisions. You build healthier relationships. You use your time wisely. You protect your peace. You no longer abandon yourself to please others. You no longer shrink to be accepted. You no longer break yourself to keep people who would leave anyway. When you focus on yourself, the love you give to others becomes more authentic because it is no longer built on emptiness. Many people think focusing on themselves means isolating from the world. But it is the opposite. When you know yourself, when you build inner strength, when you take responsibility for your life, you become more capable of contributing, helping, supporting. You're no longer seeking to be filled by others, you are overflowing. And from that overflow you can give. Self-responsibility also eliminates comparison. You stop measuring your progress with someone else's timeline. You stop feeling inferior when someone succeeds and stop feeling superior when someone fails. Instead, you realize that your only competition is the person you were yesterday. And the moment you understand this, life becomes simple. Not easy, but simple. You wake up and ask, how can I be better than yesterday? How can I improve one small thing? How can I strengthen one part of myself? How can I take one step forward? These small steps accumulate. They become habits. And habits shape destiny. There will be days when self-responsibility feels heavy, days when you're tired, unmotivated, overwhelmed. On those days, remind yourself responsibility is not a burden, it is freedom. It means your life is not controlled by luck or fate or other people's decisions. It means you have the power to change direction. You have the power to rebuild. You have the power to rise. Every day you get to decide who you become. No one else has that authority. No one else will do it for you. That is both the challenge and the gift. The world may support you, but it will not carry you. People may encourage you, but they cannot walk your path. Friends may cheer for you, but they cannot fight your battles. Family may love you, but they cannot build your character. At the end of the day, when you stand alone with your thoughts, only you know what kind of life you are creating. And only you can choose to create a better one. So focus on yourself, not to ignore the world, but to strengthen the part of you that interacts with it. When you build inner strength, you navigate life with clarity, with calmness, with purpose. You stop being pushed by distractions and start being pulled by intention. You stop living reactively and start living consciously. You stop surviving and start growing. Your life changes when you take responsibility for it. Your inner world becomes stronger, your choices become wiser, your mind becomes quieter, and your path becomes clearer. Self-responsibility is not just the first step, it is the foundation for everything that follows. Focus on you, no one else will. When you begin to truly focus on yourself, something very subtle but very important happens inside you. It is the quiet removal of noise. Not the noise outside of you, but the noise inside your mind. the expectations, the comparisons, the hidden pressures, the internal dialogues that never seem to stop. You begin to notice how much of your life has been shaped not by your own clarity, but by the opinions and judgments of others. And once you recognize this, it becomes impossible to continue living the same way. Clarity is not something you stumble into. It is something you create by removing layers of distraction. Most people believe they are confused because they don't know what they want. But the real reason they feel confused is because they know exactly what they want. They simply hear too many other voices drowning out their own. The voices of parents, friends, society, culture, fears, past failures. The world tells you to go left, but your heart pulls toward the right. And in this conflict, people lose themselves. When you focus on yourself, you begin to hear the one voice that has been quiet for too long, your own truth. And the moment you come into contact with that truth, clarity begins to form. Not instant clarity, not perfect clarity, but a gradual unfolding. Like watching fog slowly lift from a mountain. You begin to see the path that was always there, waiting for you to look. Most people never find this clarity because they never create space for it. The mind is full of unnecessary noise, endless scrolling, nonstop consumption, comparison to others, constant craving for attention or validation. All of this creates internal chaos. And in chaos, nothing is clear. Chaos destroys direction. Chaos weakens the ability to listen to yourself. Chaos makes even simple decisions feel heavy. Clarity, on the other hand, is born in silence, in observation, in stillness. When you focus on yourself, you naturally start filtering what enters your mind. You begin to notice which conversations drain your energy, which environments confuse your purpose, which people distract you from your goals, which habits keep you from growing. And slowly, you begin to step away from everything that makes your inner world noisy. This is not selfishness. This is self-preservation. The more clearly you see yourself, the more clearly you see your path. And once you see your path, comparison stops mattering, because clarity removes the illusion that you must compete with anyone. You understand deeply that your journey is not aligned with their journey. Your timing is not aligned with their timing. Your purpose is not aligned with their purpose. When you know why you wake up in the morning, you stop caring about what others think of your waking. Clarity also removes the need for approval. Many people unknowingly live their lives in this way. They make decisions based on what will make them more accepted, more admired, more liked. They hide their aspirations because they fear someone will criticize them. They adjust their personality to avoid judgment. They suppress their authentic self because they want approval more than they want truth. But when you focus on yourself long enough, something beautiful happens. You no longer seek approval because you now approve of yourself. You no longer rely on the world's applause because you trust your own direction. And the moment you trust yourself, the world loses its power to shape you. This is where inner peace begins. Clarity strengthens your boundaries. Without clarity, you say yes to things you don't want to do. You stay in relationships that drain you. You entertain conversations that dull your spirit. You accept responsibilities that don't belong to you. You carry emotional weight that was never meant for you. But with clarity, you begin to recognize your limits. You begin to protect your energy. You learn the power of saying no, not out of anger, but out of respect for yourself. When you focus on yourself, you become a guardian of your own peace. Clarity also transforms your decision-making. Decisions become easier, not because life becomes simple, but because your mind becomes simple. Clarity removes unnecessary complexity. You no longer ask, what will people think? You ask, does this align with my values? Will this help me grow? Will this make me stronger? Will this take me in the direction I want to go? Clarity turns your inner compass back on. And once it turns on, you cannot ignore it anymore. Another important part of clarity is learning to observe your own emotions. Many people believe clarity means removing emotions, but that is not true. Clarity means understanding emotion without letting it control you. When you are unclear inside, your emotions dominate your actions. You react quickly. You make decisions impulsively. You allow temporary feelings to produce permanent consequences. But when you develop clarity, emotions become signals instead of commands. You begin to see them clearly. Fear is telling you where you need courage. Sadness is telling you where you need healing. Anger is telling you where a boundary has been crossed. Anxiety is telling you where you lack preparation or understanding. Emotions become teachers. And when emotions become teachers, you no longer feel overwhelmed by them. Clarity helps you recognize what is truly important. Life is full of things that look urgent but are not important, full of things that look valuable but are actually empty, full of things that seem meaningful but do not align with your purpose. When your mind is unclear, you spend energy on the wrong things. But when your mind is clear, you recognize what deserves your attention and what does not. Clarity also expands your self-awareness. You begin to understand your strengths more deeply. Not just the obvious strengths, but the subtle ones: your ability to endure, your ability to reflect, your ability to connect, your ability to persevere. These strengths become clearer when you focus on yourself because you create space to witness them, and you become aware of your weaknesses, not as flaws, but at areas that require care, patience, and growth. With clarity, weakness becomes guidance instead of shame. You no longer fear it because you know exactly what to do with it. Clarity shapes your discipline in ways motivation never can. Motivation is emotional. It comes and goes. But clarity is stable. It stays with you. When you have clarity, you don't need to feel inspired to take action. You act because you understand why action matters. You act because you have direction. You act because you know who you want to become. Clarity also strengthens your identity. Many people carry identities created by others. They become who their family wanted them to be. They become who their environment allowed them to be. They become who their past convinced them they were. But when you focus on yourself, you begin to see the difference between who you truly are and who you have been pretending to be. And the moment you meet the real you, even for 1 second, you cannot go back to pretending. Clarity gives you confidence. Not the loud confidence that seeks attention, but the quiet confidence that is rooted in truth. When you know who you are and where you're going, you walk differently, you speak differently, you respond differently, you choose differently. You stop being shaken by every opinion. You stop being distracted by every temptation. You stop being discouraged by every setback. Clarity gives you the ability to stand firm in your path. It also helps you recognize which opportunities are for you and which are not. Without clarity, everything seems attractive, every idea feels tempting, every path looks possible. This leads to scattered effort and wasted energy. But with clarity, you choose intentionally. You filter opportunities by alignment instead of excitement, and this is what creates real progress. Clarity also gives you emotional stability. When your mind is unclear, you feel lost easily, you feel overwhelmed quickly, you feel discouraged often. But with clarity, even difficult days do not break you. Challenges become navigable. Stress becomes manageable. You handle life with a grounded presence because your direction is stable even when the world is not. Clarity helps you detach from unnecessary conflict. You stop arguing to be right. You stop trying to force people to understand you. You stop needing to defend your choices. People who lack clarity are constantly fighting. People with clarity simply continue walking their path. There is no need to prove anything when you are aligned with yourself. Clarity simplifies your relationships. You begin to recognize who supports your growth and who holds you back. You recognize which connections nourish you and which drain your spirit. You begin to choose relationships intentionally, not from loneliness, not from fear, not from habit, but from alignment. Clarity also deepens your capacity for compassion. When you see yourself clearly, you understand others more gently. You stop judging people harshly because you know every person is fighting a battle inside their own mind, but you also stop allowing their battle to interfere with your peace. You learn the delicate balance between compassion and boundaries. Clarity creates inner freedom. You stop being controlled by expectations. You stop being shaped by comparison. You stop being limited by fear. You begin to live in a way that is simple, honest, intentional. You begin to choose life instead of reacting to it. And the more clearly you see yourself, the more clearly you see what your life can become. When you focus on yourself long enough, the noise fades, the confusion dissolves, the doubts weaken, and what remains is truth, your purpose, your direction. That is the power of personal clarity. There is a moment in every person's life when they realize that who they are is not defined by what they dream or what they say they will do, but by what they choose to do every single day. Not occasionally, not when it's easy, not when motivation is high, but every day. This is where discipline becomes the architect of your character. This is where discipline begins shaping the person you become in a way that nothing else can. Dreams may inspire you, clarity may guide you, but discipline is what builds you. Most people misunderstand discipline because they see it as something harsh, rigid, or restrictive. But discipline is not a punishment. It is a form of freedom. It is the freedom to choose the long term over the short term, the freedom to break patterns that hold you back, the freedom to construct a life instead of being swept around by impulses, distractions, and emotions. Discipline is how you take control of your path instead of leaving your future to chance. When you begin focusing on yourself, you start to recognize how much of your life is influenced by habitual patterns rather than conscious intent. You begin to see how often emotions guide actions, how often impulses override logic, how often temporary comfort steals long-term growth. You start noticing the moments where you hesitate, where you resist effort, where you choose the easy way even though the easy way has never given you the life you desire. It is here, in these subtle internal moments, where discipline becomes essential. Discipline is not built in grand gestures. It is built in the small decisions you make repeatedly. It is built in the moments where no one is watching, no one is applauding, no one is expecting anything from you. Discipline grows in silence. It grows in the everyday commitments that seem insignificant on their own but become transformative over time. When you wake up early even though your mind tells you to stay in bed, you strengthen discipline. When you train even when your body feels tired, you strengthen discipline. When you study, practice, reflect, or work when you're not in the mood, you strengthen discipline. When you keep a promise you made to yourself, you strengthen discipline. When you choose growth over comfort, you strengthen discipline. And every time you strengthen your discipline, you strengthen your character. It is important to understand that discipline is not something you are born with. It is not a personality trait given to a select few. Discipline is a skill, one that is learned, cultivated, and refined over time. Anyone can develop it, but only those willing to endure discomfort, repetition, and effort truly achieve it. Discipline requires patience, but not passive patience. It requires the kind of patience rooted in trust. Trust that your actions today will transform your tomorrow. Trust that the steps you take now, even if small, are contributing to something meaningful. Trust that progress is being made even when it is not yet visible. This kind of patience is difficult for most people because the world is full of distractions that promise quick pleasure, quick success, quick results. But anything that comes quickly also disappears quickly. The things that last, the strength, the stability, the confidence, the mastery, are always built through consistent discipline. The world will try to pull you in 1,000 directions. Your mind will try to persuade you to avoid effort. Your emotions will try to convince you to take the easy way. But once you commit to discipline, you begin to rise above these influences. You stop acting out of impulse and begin acting out of intention. Your decisions become stronger. Your presence becomes stronger. Your direction becomes stronger. Discipline shapes your habits, and your habits shape your life. If you want to change your life, you must first change your habits. And if you want to change your habits, you must begin with discipline. It is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. Every version of your future self is waiting on the other side of discipline. The stronger version of you, the healthier version of you, the more patient, wiser, calmer, more capable version of you, All of them are built through daily effort. Discipline is how you meet them, but discipline is not only about doing difficult things. It is also about not doing the things that weaken you. It is the discipline to walk away from distractions, to say no to temptations, to limit the influences that scatter your energy. It is the discipline to maintain your focus, to protect your mind, to prioritize what truly matters. Strength is not only built in action, it is built in restraint. When you understand discipline at this level, you begin to see how much power you truly have over your life. You begin to see that your future is not determined by luck, talent, or circumstances, but by the choices you make repeatedly. You begin to recognize that discipline is the most reliable path to any form of mastery or success. Discipline also deepens your self-respect. Every time you follow through on a commitment, you tell yourself, "I can rely on me." This internal trust is one of the most powerful forces a human being can develop. When you trust yourself, you no longer fear challenges. You no longer doubt your ability to overcome. You no longer hesitate when faced with difficulty. You move through life with a quiet confidence, knowing that no matter what arises, you will face it with discipline. This self-trust becomes a foundation. It becomes an anchor in moments of uncertainty. It becomes a strength you carry into every area of your life. Discipline also reshapes your relationship with time. When you lack discipline, time controls you. You waste it, lose it, and look back wondering where it went. But when you live with discipline, you control time, you use it wisely, you respect it, you invest it into your growth, your goals, your purpose. You begin to see each day as an opportunity rather than a burden. Discipline also teaches you the difference between intensity and consistency. Many people start their journey with intensity, big goals, big energy, big enthusiasm. But intensity is temporary. Consistency is what changes you. Consistency is what builds strength. Consistency is what creates transformation. And consistency is born from discipline. That the days you feel unmotivated matter even more than the days you feel inspired. Because discipline means you show up regardless of how you feel. It means you do not negotiate with your excuses. You do not wait for the perfect mood or the perfect moment. You commit and you follow through. This consistency creates momentum. And once momentum begins, progress becomes inevitable. Discipline also strengthens emotional resilience. When you consistently push yourself beyond comfort, you become more capable of handling stress, discomfort, uncertainty, and challenge. Your threshold for difficulty increases. You stop collapsing under pressure. You stop running from discomfort. You begin to see discomfort as a signal of growth rather than something to avoid. The person who avoids discomfort remains the same. The person who embraces discomfort evolves. Discipline is the key to this evolution. It also sharpens your focus. The more disciplined you become, the less attractive distractions become. You become less reactive to external noise. You begin to recognize how much your attention is worth. You start guarding your focus like something precious. Because it is precious, your focus determines your future. Discipline also teaches you delayed gratification. It teaches you to choose what you want most over what you want now. It teaches you to look beyond the immediate moment and consider the long-term impact of your actions. This ability alone separates those who grow from those who remain stuck. People without discipline are controlled by their impulses. People with discipline control their impulses. Through discipline, you begin to understand the connection between effort and identity. The more you show up for yourself, the more you become the type of person who shows up. Discipline becomes not just an action you take, but a part of who you are. And when discipline becomes part of your identity, growth becomes natural. But perhaps the most powerful aspect of discipline is this: it turns potential into reality. Many people have potential, but very few build discipline. Potential is a seed, discipline is the water. Without discipline, potential remains just that, a possibility. With discipline, possibility becomes achievement. Your strength, your purpose, your clarity, all of it is refined through discipline. It is the tool through which you sculpt your character, align your actions with your values, and transform your inner world. It is the path to mastering yourself. Every time you choose discipline, you take one more step toward the person you are meant to become.